How are we gonna get out of this pickle? To be clear, I'm still at the stage of gathering data in my research. And yet your retort to my argument wasn't lacking in confidence in any way. No scientist can find the truth without first finding self-belief. Those words of a certain scientist I hold in the very highest esteem. But you realize that disproving my argument puts you in a very precarious position, don't you? No scientist should strive to protect himself more than he strives to protect the truth. More words of the same great scientist, you know. Words are causing me a lot of trouble. Who is the scientist? I am afraid I couldn't tell you, Mr. Naruhodo. But as soon as I remember the magnificent genius's name, you will be the first one to know. It might be worth keeping the names of your idols to mind.
You're wasting your breath, my learned friend.
This scatterbrain even forgets my name at times.
So Lord Van Zieks really did have a friend once, but I didn't notice hell freezing over.
My hypothesis states that kinesis cannot transport metal, so hence the metal weapon would have stayed put. Oh. Hold it! Your hypothesis states it, so this isn't proven then? Nine, of course not. It's merely a hypothesis, but a good one, based upon thousands of calculations. But it is widely known that metals cannot be decomposed by electrolysis. Yeah, of course. So I am right. My hypothesis is clearly correct.
What is it about incriminating himself that makes this man so happy?
It's the whole reason that the birdcage is made of wood, you see.
Sorry, the birdcage?
Yeah, that's what I call the sea obtusa cage in which Mr. Osman was placed for the kinesis. Ah, the jail cell in which the victim was detained. It does indeed seem to be made of a timber of some sort.
I'll thank you not to refer to it as an instrument of incarceration, your lordship. In short, any weapon lodged as a victim when he was beamed away by instantaneous kinesis would have been left behind on the stage if it was made of metal, correct?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. It all fits perfectly with the mathematical model. But the ultimate conclusion, then, is that the defendant alone had the opportunity to inflict this fatal injury on the victim, is it not? Ah, indeed, sir.
Someone beam me out of this nightmare.
In other words, the point just raised by Mr. Naruhodo isn't an inconsistency at all.
You seem to be pleased by that.
Yeah, another example of my hypothesis holding true. But I sense some sarcasm, Mr. Naruhodo. Are you not pleased?
No.
I knew it. At the end of the day, I am the one responsible for Mr. Osman losing his life. The advancement of science is no excuse, I know that.
No, you're quite right.
Tell the court, did you have a close relationship with Mr. Osman? Oh, well, no, not really. I mean, I'd only met him 2 or 3 times. And we only ever discussed my hypothesis and the project, and the research grant, of course. Mr. Osman was the patron of my research. Without him, my work wouldn't have been possible.
How did you come to know Mr. Osman in the first place?
A year ago now, a small provisional science journal published a little paper about my work. That's a scientific journal? Good gracious, I should need new spectacles. I might have had an extraordinary hypothesis and great promise. But at the time, I had no money. I had to eat tiny little meals at a tiny little cafe and drink watered down water out of a tiny little glass. But Mr. Osman read the paper and came to visit me at my tiny little laboratory.
I'd offered you money to help fund your work.
Exactly, that's exactly what happened. I handled the theoretical side of things, and Mr. Asman provided me with an engineer for the practical. And the three of us produced that fantastic machine together.
The machine that you brought to the Great Exhibition to demonstrate.
We had to apply to the government for some sort of inspection to be allowed to exhibit, I think. I don't understand all that side of things, but Mr. Asman took care of all of it. He was a wonderful man, really. I owe him everything. Now I have a duty to protect the incredible machine that we built together.
When you say that you built the machine together, does that mean that you are involved in its construction?
Yeah. Well, not exactly. I'm not good with the practical side of machines myself, so the physical construction was done by an engineer.
Little remains of your creation now, though. Following the explosion, repair will no doubt be impossible.
Yeah, I realize that, but still. If someone were to gather all the broken parts, they could discover the secret of my hypothesis. But Mr. Asman and I toured over that machine for so long. We put our hearts and souls into it. I have to protect our work. So what's left of the machine must be kept safe. That's only fair, because what happened was an accident.
That's the extent of the testimony, then? Thank goodness for that. I don't want him doing any more damage. He's already basically proven that he could have been the culprit. But it seems as though all he really cares about is defending his hypothesis. Still, I wonder, what if his hypothesis is just fundamentally flawed? How would we go about proving that? There's something here. There's something here to contradict what he just said. Could it be the crossbow? I feel like it's too early to bring out the crossbow, but I don't know. Let's look at all the statements again. Gathering data. Cannot transport metal. Is the base made of wood? No, it's all metal, I think. It looks to be all metal, so... I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think presenting the crossbow now will result in anything, but I don't know what else to present. This piece of rubber from something, the scorch marks, canvas-like material. Oh, wow, okay. I wouldn't have gotten that at all. Wow, okay, so... Have you guessed what the clue is, viewers? What contradiction is there? There's metal on his glasses. That little piece of metal. This little piece of metal proves that metal can be transported. Wow, okay.
Objection.
Here we go. Professor Hairbrain, you say that according to your hypothesis, nothing made of metal can be beamed by instantaneous kinesis using the machine you made? Is that right? Yeah, that's right. Spot on. Exactly correct. In that case, I'd ask you to have a look at this photograph that was taken at the scene. In particular, I'd like you to pay attention to the victim's face. You can clearly see that Mr. Asman is wearing a pair of spectacles with a metal rim.
What? Metal? Nine! Metal can't... That's not... metal? Nine!
We've already established that the proposed murder weapon, the screwdriver, was found on the stage. However, if your hypothesis correctly predicted that outcome, it should also have predicted that the metal rimmed spectacles would be found in the same place.
Ah! My hypothesis! My hypothesis!
Professor Hairbrain, this isn't easy for me to say, but your hypothesis is clearly flawed.
Why? Order! 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 Cancel! What is the implication of this?
If on the day in question the alleged instantaneous kinesis never actually took place, then it's entirely possible that the victim was killed somewhere other than on the stage. And in that case, someone other than the defendant could have been the culprit.
But my hypothesis is sound. I proved it that day. The experiment was a success. The experiment was proof of my work.
If I could say something here, in my capacity as a fellow of the Royal Society.
Yes, juror number 4. Go ahead.
As a man of science, there's one thing I simply cannot abide. And that is a fraud who pretends to be a fellow man of science.
What? Wait, Great Scott, are you suggesting my science is suspect?
It's just been disproved, hasn't it? In front of all of us. In other words, the whole demonstration was a complete nonsense from start to finish. Believe me, my fellow jurors, when I tell you that this man is a heel, a bounder, and a fraud.
I say the wreckage of that machine should be stripped down and thoroughly examined. Nine! Never! That machine is the essence of my entire hypothesis. It's protected by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act. What the devil is that blasted act all about, eh? Who made up such a daft rule? A daft rule.
I don't like the way this seems to be going. What's the best way for me to help the professor? Yeah, why not? Maybe I should watch and wait for the time being.
My feeling is that the machine requires a thorough examination.
But what about this special dispensation that's been mentioned? Oh gosh, this is all too much.
If it's determined that the machine itself was the murder weapon, I think you'll find that act won't apply.
Of course it was a murder weapon! Anyone can see that as plain as day!
So we're all in agreement, are we? That the machine should be stripped?
If I don't do something, they'll...
Professor Hairbrain has yet to perfect his invention. That would seem to be the case, yes. But even so what? Going to such trouble and expense to create a fake machine to display in public, he would have absolutely no reason to do such a thing.
Objection!
He had an obvious reason to do exactly that. For the research grant money.
If the government was foolish enough to have deemed the man's ridiculous notion plausible, he and his conspirators would have received a handsome sum indeed.
Conspirators?
What would be the value of such a grant? £10?
You're an order of magnitude out, madam. £500 a year.
Oh, or you could live an income on that machine for years.
The Society has noticed an increase in bogus public demonstrations in the field of science recently, and plenty of scientists arguing with each other to get the largest slice of the funding cake. People's greed is plenty motive enough for murder, I assure you.
No, nine. I haven't deceived anyone, least of all the government. My hypothesis is sound. The science is sound. Please, you must believe me.
Objection! No matter how unbelievable this hypothesis may seem to you, ladies and gentlemen, the fact remains that the victim was transported instantly to the Crystal Tower. Which means that the experiment was a success.
Ah, Baroque.
And therefore, the only person who could possibly have committed this murder is the accused.
Oh, Baroque. Where is this heading? I have no idea.
My lord, if I may.
Yes, Lord Van Zieks?
The prosecution would like to summon new witnesses to the stand.
New witnesses? What would be the nature of their involvement?
They were spectators of the demonstration at the exhibition, who were occupying special seats.
Eyewitnesses. Very well. The court grants the prosecution's request. I should very much like to hear from eyewitnesses to the incident.
The prosecution stance is clear. This experiment was no postiche. The accused killed the financier victim there on the public stage before the very eyes of the spectators. Now, my learned friend.
Yes?
It's time for you to make your own stance clear.
There is clearly a flaw in the professor's hypothesis. I can definitely see that. But where does that leave me? We shall take a short recess now, during which time the prosecution will prepare its new witnesses to take the stand.
As you wish, my lord.
Good. In that case, court is adjourned for 20 minutes. To be continued. I hypothesize that we will return shortly. Farewell. 23rd of October, 10:44 a.m. The Old Bailey Defendant's Antique Chamber. Mr. Naruhodo, what on earth were you playing at just now? Or rather, what on earth were you playing at all along? My hypothesis, my amazing hypothesis, you've been digging a hole in it from the start. Sorry about that. You promised me. You said you proved that that explosion was an accident, not murder. You said you'd keep my precious invention from falling into anyone else's hands. But all you've done so far is try to undermine me. Yeah, I did make you a promise, you're right. I said that I'd believe in you and fight for your freedom to the very end. But I also told you I was no scientist. I don't understand your hypothesis. The fact is, there's an undeniable flaw in your logic, isn't there? But if I just ran through some equations, yeah, you see, it's because my work is incomplete. Perhaps it is. Nevertheless, a man died as a consequence, didn't he? Oh, 9. You're right. You're so right. It's all my fault. And I have no right to blame you for my failures. I am a disaster. Not just as a scientist, but as a human being. Well, that might be a little over the top. And while we're on the subject, what about Baroque? He's being awful. Claiming his old university friend to be a murderer, you mean? He's a disaster. Not just as a prosecutor, but as a human being. Oh, but 9. Wait, no, he's the Reaper, isn't he? Perhaps he's not classified as Homo sapiens anymore. Glad that's cleared up. Can I double check something with you? Yeah? What? The machine and demonstration you prepared, they were based entirely on your hypothesis, I presume. There was no trickery involved? I drew the plans for the machine with my very own hands. Every line was painstakingly drawn with the firm belief that science is the only future. So yeah, it's true that my hypothesis hasn't reached maturity yet, but please, Mr. Naruhodo, you must believe in it.
Alright, Professor. I understand.
Counsel, defendant. The prosecution's witnesses are ready to take the stand. Court is about to be in session again. Make your way in the courtroom, please.
It all hinges on that demonstration. If the professor's hypothesis is sound as he claims, it leaves him as the only person who could possibly have killed the victim. But on the other hand, Mr. Sholmes was adamant. A practical implementation such as was attempted by the professor at the Great Exhibition is quite impossible. So really, what should I be trying to prove here? We'll just go with the flow and see what happens.
In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby reconvene the proceedings of this court. Counsels for your defense and prosecution, are you ready for the new witnesses to testify?
The prosecution is ready, my lord.
As is the defense, my lord.
Sir, Lord Van Zeeks, I believe these next witnesses saw the demonstration on the day in question with their own eyes?
Indeed they did. And as luck would have it, one of them is a police detective. So the testimony we are about to hear can be considered highly reliable.
Perfect. A detective of all people.
The prosecution's stance remains unchanged. Though it ended in tragedy, the demonstration on the day in question was scientifically sound. And consequently, the sole person with the opportunity to have committed this act of murder is the only other individual to have been present on the stage at that time, the accused.
Thank you, counsel. The prosecution's position is clear. So, bring forth your witnesses now.
Bailiff, show the witnesses in. The witnesses whose proximity to the incident on the day in question will clarify the truth unequivocally. Witnesses, state your names and occupation for the court to hear.
My name? My name is Balthazar Loon. Balthazar Loon. I am the impressor of all the hot air balloons in vicinity of the Esperimento stage.
Oh, it's a boy. Okay. I've already done soft German and hard German. I don't... My name... My name
is Wilhelm Groschreich Sigmund. I have come to see the great exhibition all the way from my home in Bohemia. I am very rich.
Inspector James Shaw at Scotland Yard. I'm a great detective, even Earl Sholmes agrees. I was on security duty at the exhibition, and I got to go up in one of them balloons. It was amazing. Gina, again? But she did mention that she'd seen the disaster from up in a balloon, actually, didn't she? And she clearly loved every minute of it.
There were 3 balloons flying near the public experimentation stage when the incident occurred. 2 of these witnesses were in one such balloon at the time and saw events unfold from the skies above.
You make it sound like they were in the clouds.
Now he's German too. No.
You make it sound they were in the clouds. It was only an altitude of circa 60 feet. Very low.
Well, you can't see nothing if you fly too hard, can ya? 60 feet. About 18 meters then.
Thank you for your introductions. Now, you will give your formal testimony for the court. Kindly describe exactly what you witnessed, especially those of you who had a vantage point above the stage. It was an incidente terrible. I am only grateful that my balloons were not damaged. There's this huge bang from the stage, and the next second, another bang in the sky beside us. And from amid this smoke, a cage appeared out of nowhere. A cage, it fell from the sky like a stone, and crashed into the crystal tower. I didn't get a good look inside the cage, but no one went near it after it crashed into the tower.
Right.
A most extraordinary collective account, I must say.
Could I just clarify something? There's a detail in the witness's testimony that I have not heard any mention of until now. Specifically, that there were 2 explosions?
More precisely, 2 explosions in 2 separate places, yes. When the demonstration began, the balloon carryings of 2 witnesses was around here. There were other balloons in the air nearby at the time, carrying other passengers as well, to be clear. Then, as power was supplied to the machine for the demonstration, the first explosion occurred. The so-called bird case that contains the victim disappeared from the stage, and a moment later, the second explosion occurred directly adjacent to the balloon carrying the witnesses. The birdcage appeared at the site of the explosion, subsequently to plummet down into the crystal tower.
I was very surprised. Suddenly a cage appeared before my eyes with a person inside. The blood was so hot, but I didn't want to miss a thing, so I kept my eyes wide. I still have lots of money. Precisely, who is this curious infant?
I'm told he is a young noble of Bohemian royalty. Apparently, he disguised himself in order to steal unnoticed into the great exhibition.
Yeah, I am here in London on a sightseeing trip with my elementary school.
We will have the benefit of a child's point of view in the testimony.
Do we really need that?
When I remove my mask, this is what I look like. Ah, yes, I see. A delightful face, I'm sure. Yeah, everybody says so.
Great disguise, then.
The point is, the testimony of these witnesses further substantiates the facts for the court. Namely, that despite ending in an explosion, instantaneous kinesis was successfully demonstrated. And furthermore, that until the arrival of the police, no one approached the crystal tower where the victim fell. Therefore, only the accused, who was with Mr. Osmond on the stage, could possibly have committed the murder.
Yes, thank you, counsel. The prosecution's views on the matter are quite clear. So, the defense's cross-examination now, please.
Yes, my lord.
It was an incidente terrible. I'm only grateful that my balloons were not damaged.
There were 3 balloons flying above the experimentation stage at the time, I understand.
See, all 3 of them, my bellissimi bambini. They are very popular, senor. Some people will pay £10 for the ride. For one ride. £10? That's more than my annual stipend.
£20 a month. That is my pocket money.
Royals have all the luck. I got up there for free, I did. Played the old I work for Her Majesty's police card, you know. Detectives have all the luck. If they're so popular, why would you only be operating such a small number of balloons, though?
Because if I have too many in disguise, they could crash into each other.
The operators for the balloons were decided by lots, with each operator manning a particular area.
See, and the zone above the public experimentation stage is the most profitable. The other impresarios, they hate me.
Thank you, witness. I think the court has a clear picture of the arrangements of balloon rides. I think the court has a clear picture of the arrangements for balloon rides at the exhibition. Perhaps we could hear more about what you actually witnessed of the incident? Right, I can fill you in there, my lord. There's this huge bang from the stage, and then the next second, another bang in the sky besides us. Hold it! So you actually saw the accident happen from up in the air? Yeah, isn't it amazing what a detective gets to do, eh? I'm telling you, Odo, being a lawyer is a mug's game. You should join the force and we can go flying together. You know me so well. Yeah, well, anyway, could you tell us exactly what you saw, do you think? Everything! We saw everything, 'cause we were above it all. That dodgy cove climbing in that stage, and that dodgy professor pulling all them levers. And that's when it happened. That's when there was that massive bang, and the cage disappeared just like that. You're describing the moment the subject's body was decomposed by the electricity, I believe. I didn't know what to make of it. But then there was another bang right in my ear. I looked round, and there was a huge great fireball right next to us in the sky. And there was nothing there before. Excuse me. Master Gotts, does your memory of the day differ?
Num num num. My teacher at elementary school said that when you meet someone for the first time, you should always use the full name.
Yes. What was it again?
Wilhelm Gottschalk Sigmund Wormstein.
Just the 4 names, then? The point is, do you have something to say? Something to add in response to Detective Jean Lestrade's last remark, perhaps? Oi! Get red, Odo! It's Inspector Lestrade! Why does everyone have a problem with how I dress them at the moment?
Num 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 num. That is not what I saw.
Oh?
Yeah, there was a second explosion and it was right beside a balloon. That is true. But I'm sure...
Which is what I said, innit? 1 minute there was nothing there, the next a massive explosion.
My teacher at elementary school said that when someone else is speaking, if you are rude enough to interrupt, you will have the most awful life imaginable.
Are all Bohemians brought up to be so full of joy?
Just before the second explosion happened next to a balloon, I clearly witnessed a green balloon flying in the sky.
A green balloon? Aye, you are? I never saw nothing like that.
Well, I did. I saw it. You can't say I didn't. I will complain to the council. I will cry and scream. My testimony is the truth. I am Bohemian Prince. You cannot say it's a lie. That is not allowed.
Blind the blatant royalty card, are you? Typical. Says the orphan who likes to remind people she works for Her Majesty's police. In that case, young man, I must ask you to amend your formal testimony. In the interest of cordial national relations between Great Britain and Bohemia.
It was not the sky that exploded. It was a green balloon that was next to us at the time.
A green balloon, you say? Are you sure about that?
Of course I am sure. I am a proud Bohemian prince. All these questions are making me boring.
What? I think you mean bored.
Ugh, English is very annoying. The language of my countrymen is far superior.
Ragazzo eats... What? Ragazzo, it is very wrong to lie.
Lie?
Flying balloons never explode. For the same reason the planets never explode. It is logical. Please tell me that doesn't mean logical.
You insult me, you insult all of Bohemia.
Might die.
I will have the army come and shoot all of your stupid balloons out of the sky. All of them.
Here you are, your highness. Here you are, your highness. If only all international incidents were so easily resolved.
Now that peaceful relations have been restored here in this courtroom, perhaps we could return to the testimony. Did you also see the moments that the cage materialized, Mr. Loon?
No, I did not see the explosion myself. However, the cage, it fell from the sky like a stone and crashed into the crystal tower. Did you see that actually happen? No, in reality I did not. I saw after it hit the tower. There was a grande confusion about the stage. Around the stage. I ran to see what had happened. I was terrorized by the idea that one of my balloons had crashed. I suppose they are his livelihood. But when I looked up to the sky, all my precious balloons were still there. I saw it though. I saw it slam into the tower. After all, I am a detective now. Then tell us what you saw, Inspector Lestrade. That's what I'd like to hear. I didn't get a good look inside the cage, but no one went near it after it crashed into the tower. Was it you who gave the order to keep people away? I? Use your head, Dodo. How could it have been me? I was up in a balloon, weren't I? Right. So cause I weren't available, it was the boss who had to let it over there. He was getting shoved and kicked all over by the panicking spectators as he tried to seal off the scene. It was a real sight to behold, I can tell ya. Amazing. Poor Inspector Gregson. So anyway, I couldn't see the cage that well because of all the smoke. And I didn't really want to see, to be honest. I was scared out of my wits. Keep it together, Inspector. The prosecution really is asserting that the demonstration was genuine. But what if it was actually some kind of switch-around trick instead? That would mean that the victim was never actually on the stage in the first place. The two explosions would have thrown everyone watching into a panic for sure. I think I need to find out more about what exactly people saw at the time. Oh.
Objection!
There we go. Mr. Loon, in your testimony, you said that all three of the balloons you had operating at the time were undamaged.
See, that is correct. If they had been caught in the explosiones, it would have been terrible.
I wonder if you might know what this is.
Ah, I think it may be... See, part of a balloon. A burnt piece of the fabric of the envelope.
Sorry, the envelope?
Pardon, that is the large round part of the balloon which becomes filled with hot air. It is made from very thick fabric lined with rubber. You do not want it to rip when you're in the sky.
Just as I thought. This piece of cloth was found near the experimentation stage. In other words,
As Master Gotts testified, and terrified, a green balloon did indeed explode that day.
Eh?
If all the balloons in the sky above the experimentation stage belong to you, Mr. Loon, then your statement that they were all undamaged clearly contradicts the evidence.
No!
If a balloon exploded that day, why didn't the man say so? Maybe everyone on board was killed. Oh no, Jefferson just spent 10 pounds of the experience? How awful. Seems to me like those things crash 50% of the time anyway.
Yes, it is. Kinesis did occur, but after the explosion on the stage, the point of materialization shifted to a location occupied by a balloon.
Causing the balloon to explode? Yes, eminently plausible.
An unfortunate traffic accident, as it were, but it changes nothing about the pertinent facts.
This I cannot accept. Why not, Mr. Loon?
You're suggesting that I'm a liar? The person's died in a balloon incident?
There's no need to get fired up, Mr. Loon. The victim was the sole fatality that day.
That's right, and I prove it.
Balthazar Loon is not a liar.
There was no such balloon in the sky. It is not possibly.
You're saying it's impossible, eh? Why? Por qué?
This court has more important matter to discuss than the number of balloons that were operating that day.
But we can't ignore the fact that nobody appears to have known anything about this other balloon until now. My lord, the defense calls for further testimony from Mr. Loon.
I concur. There is clearly more to the truth here than meets the eye. It's imperative that we clear up the issue of this phantom balloon, I feel. Witness, you will give supplementary testimony about the balloons you are operating at the exhibition. Grazie, my lord.
He just changes voices and accents every time. Deal with it.
As I said, Balthazar Loon is no liar. Every balloon I had in the sky landed safely. All 3 of my balloons were carrying passengers. If they fell to the ground in an esplosione, what a catastrophe! Well, you can't get away from the fact that a burned up bit of cloth was found on the scene, can you? The culprit said that you all reckon it was probably some debris thrown from the explosion on the stage. This stupid ragazzo is mistaken. My balloons have the red and blue zigzag stripes anyway.
Right.
So your assertion is that the balloon this child saw was not one belonging to you? Si, exactamente. If he even saw a balloon in the first place, I do not like the sound of it. It is very bad for business. I have a good mind to sue the land of Bohemia. If you attack us, we will fight back. It will be war, all out war.
What happened to all out war? Mr. Lawrence certainly doesn't appear to be lying. But that doesn't change the fact that the testimony and evidence are contradictory here.
If the defense is unable to find fault with the witness's statements, the court must consider them the truth. Think long and hard on that, my learned friend.
The situation has clearly changed now. I have to get to the bottom of what happened here, no matter what it takes.
Counsel, you may now cross-examine the witnesses.
Alright, I think I got a theory. Can we take a look at the victim? Right. He's wearing a shirt with a bow tie. But where's his jacket? He was wearing a jacket, no? We don't have a full picture of him, but surely he was wearing a coat or a jacket or something, maybe, and this isn't part of a balloon, but part of his jacket, maybe, or maybe a hazmat suit, a fireproof suit. I don't know. But we'll find out soon enough, I guess. As I said, Balthazar Loon is no liar. Every balloon I had in the sky landed safely. Every balloon? You couldn't just have forgotten one, maybe? Senor. I might not notice if I was given 100 lentils and one was missing. But we're talking about 3 enormous balloons. Do you believe I could make a mistake about something so grande and expensive, eh?
I took the liberty of having Inspector Gregson check this gentleman's warehouse. I have the report here. It clearly says a total of 3 balloons.
It would appear no mistake has been made, then. Surely Mr. Stark could have been sent for such a menial task. What? Me? I'll tell you what I told the boss. Ace and kids like me can only count up to 2. Obviously that ain't true, but the boss bought it and said he'd have to go himself in that case. All the 3 of my balloons were carrying passengers. If they fell to the ground in an explosion, what a catastrophe! It would be quite a catastrophe if they fell to the ground for any reason, I think. On that note, Mr. Loon, tell me, what is it that keeps these balloons in the sky?
Are you an idiota?
Sorry. That is like asking why does a candle burn bright? It burns bright because it burns bright, and a balloon flies because it flies. What else? Oh, that must be Italian for I don't know. Oh, he's supposed to be Italian? Whatever.
There are 2 types of flying balloons. Hot air balloons and gas balloons. Hot air balloons work on the principle of hot air being less dense than cold air, whereas gas balloons derive their lift by using a gas that is lighter than air.
See? Oh, let me try an Italian accent. See, and my balloons are filled with the magical gas, I believe. No, it's terrible.
Hydrogen, lighter than air but highly explosive. Good lord!
I do not permit smoking of the cigarettes in any of my balloons. The magic gas does not lack the fire.
Even a small spark of static electricity could cause the entire balloon to explode.
What is the matter with you, senor? All that comes out of your mouth is esplosione! Esplosione! I tell you, my balloons are perfectly safe. They have to be, or I cannot eat. None of my balloons exploded that day. I am completely sure. But if you still say that it was happened, you must show me the proof. Alright, so Mr. Loon had 3 balloons in the air that day. If none of them were damaged, then what was the one that exploded? Well, you can't get away from the fact that a burnt up bit of cloth was found at the scene, can you? I was surprised to find the piece of fabric still at the scene, actually. Didn't you search the area surrounding the stage for clues? Nah, I'm not into picking stuff off the ground, mate. Always works out way better diving into people's pockets instead. So much for the new career path. Mind you, the boss was on his hands and knees picking up all kinds of rubbish from the floor. Thing is, though, the cage went crashing into the Crystal Tower, didn't it? So that's where most of the investigation was going on. Even so, I would have thought someone from Scotland Yard would have gathered it up as evidence. Cool, listen to you. You stumble across a bit of balloon and suddenly you're the best investigator in the world? Pardon? Well, you ain't got a badge, have you? Like this one? I could arrest you with this if I wanted to. I wouldn't put it past her. Come to think of it, there was talk of some scorching on the ground at a meeting we had about the investigation. The corpus of the yard reckoned it was probably some debris thrown from the explosion on the stage. There was considerable damage to the stage and surrounding area, wasn't there? Yeah, some of the cows were watching the experiment were caught in the blast and injured. Good job the old contraption didn't keel over, eh? I hadn't even considered that.
It seems there was great panic after the incident occurred. Nevertheless, the police shouldn't have missed a torn piece of the envelope from a balloon. Inspector Gregson can expect repercussions.
Like me swiping all his fish and chips, eh?
The man's sole pleasure.
None of this matters. That scrap of balloon envelope means nothing. Niente. This stupido ragazzo is mistaken. My balloons have the red and blue zigzag stripes anyway.
You mean the color is wrong?
Si, senor. I do not have any green balloons in my warehouse.
And yet, a piece of green cloth was found at the scene, and it's unmistakably from a balloon.
Well, I do not know how that can be.
For the sake of argument, let's say that the great balloon did explode above the stage. You couldn't therefore conclude that it happened on the day in question?
Why not?
There have been recreational balloon flights over Hyde Park operating from before the Great Exhibition. One could have exploded on some earlier date. Unfortunate, as I'm sure you'd agree.
You believe it may have been from some early balloon accident that predates the exhibition? Si, exactamente. As the senor says, it is not from one of my balloons. Clearly this little ragazzo from Bohemia is mistaken about what he saw.
Excuse me.
Is something wrong, Master Gotts?
It's Master Wilhelm Gostreich Sigmund Ormstein.
It was on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, something is very wrong. I know what I saw. There was a green balloon there. I swear it. I swear all over Bohemia.
You can speak as much bad language as you like, but it changes nothing. Oh, if you do not have evidence, ragazzo, then I must tell your parents to punish you, eh?
Perhaps we'll let the judge decide when it comes to punishment.
Evidence? What is this evidence?
To give a simple example, young man. A photograph, for instance. Some tangible proof of what you claim.
Well, why didn't you say sooner? I have the photograph here.
Good gracious.
What? I had not been up in a balloon for a little while, so I was very excited. I took lots and lots of photographs. Of the Crystal Tower, of the Bohemian exhibit, of the streets of London, of the hot ale cellar, the balloon.
And the instantaneous kinesis experiment? Did you take a picture of that?
Yeah, one picture.
Really? You did take one?
But all I wanted was a rat in a balloon. I was not interested in boring experiments.
Never mind that. Can you show us that photograph?
Of course, and then you will see. You will see that I am not lying. That I really did see a green balloon. Well, I see you are all too shocked to speak.
Yes, I think shocked is indeed the word, young man.
Yeah, perhaps you cannot see that it was a green balloon from this photograph, but that is not my fault. That is the fault of this stupid person who meets the camera. I'm crying.
That is one very bohemian sounding cry.
Very well, the court will accept this photograph as evidence.
It's not my fault. It's the fault of the person who made the camera.
Oh, never mind. I'm sure you have plenty of wonderful sepia memories to take home with you. In any case, when exactly did he take that photograph?
Well, it was on the day of the big explosion.
You don't say.
When I pressed the shutter release, there was this very loud bang, and a hot wind rushed over my face.
That means this photograph was taken a split second before the explosion occurred. Well, if you ask me, this black and white photograph changes nothing. I could not give the flying fig. Lovely language you've picked up. As I thought, Mr. Loon's testimony just doesn't quite add up. The young bohemian boy claims to have seen another fourth balloon, but Mr. Loon vehemently denies the possibility. And it's hard to imagine the man in charge could be mistaken about the number that were in the air. Still, this inconsistency must tell us something, I'm sure. Red and blue zigzag stripes. Okay. Let's look at the picture. Let's see what we can discover from here. So there's the experiment. Can we see a coat on there? It's not really that apparent. Okay. Okay, he's saying that all three were carrying passengers. This one doesn't have any passengers, though.
Objection.
There we go. Unfortunately, the photograph Master Gotts took can't tell us the color of the balloon, but it can tell us something else. Something crucially important. What? It shows that the pictured balloon wasn't carrying any passengers.
Oh, my goodness, you're right. But surely all the balloons would have been carrying passengers. There would be no sense in it otherwise. See, they are for pleasure, for seeing the view. My balloons only fly with passengers.
Which tells us that the pictured balloon isn't one of them. So when the incident occurred that day, there was a fourth balloon in the skies above the experimentation stage. The mysterious green balloon.
I know nothing, niente. I can only tell you one thing. If this balloon was not carrying passengers, then it was not one of mine.
Objection! There are illegal tradesmen everywhere you care to look. Clearly one such entrepreneur decided to capitalize on the opportunity presented by the Great Exhibition and managed to operate balloon flights on Mr. Loon's perch without realizing.
The competizione tried to steal my profits. I did not notice because of the esperimento that went wrong on the stage.
This fourth balloon exploded at the very same moment Mr. Asman was beamed from the stage below.
Right. So them scraps that fell are going after and left them scorch marks, they didn't come from the stage at all. It was bits of the balloon raining down. Because no one was in it, it didn't get no attention.
A mysterious fourth balloon carrying no passengers, silently floating over the experimentation stage.
Objection! This photograph shows us nothing more. A stray balloon carrying no one and operated by some rogue trader. Clearly it has nothing to do with this case.
Its relevance does elude me, I must say.
The court has seen sufficient evidence and heard ample testimony already. The prosecution calls for this trial to be concluded.
Really? Have we really got to the truth yet? No, I can't let this opportunity slip away. The jurors' minds are made up, and not in our favor. What else can this photograph tell us? Is there nothing more we can learn from it? Sure, why not?
Objection.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, wait! Please don't give your decisions yet. The photograph from Master Gotts may well be hiding one more vital clue.
What's that?
A vital clue?
Objection! well past the point of mere possibilities. It's time for definitive now. So tells the court. What exactly does this alleged clue in this photograph prove?
The balloon's color. That's what this photograph tells us.
Objection! This is too absurd for words. How on earth do you propose that the color of the balloon can be discerned from this sepia print?
You have to clear your mind of all the extraneous information that's clouding your judgment. Then look at the photograph and focus. Now tell me, what do you see?
Sepia.
Quite. I believe the defense's overly colorful imagination needs toning down a little.
Am I the only one who sees a green balloon? I'll come up with another possibility then.
Very well past points of mere possibilities. It's time for definitives. What exactly does this alleged clue in the photograph prove?
Alright, let's look at the photograph again. It doesn't prove the owner, but, okay, you know what? I'm gonna give that a go as well. I want to see what he says. The owner of the fourth balloon. That's what this photograph tells us.
How could this be possibly? See, all my balloons have red and blue zigzag stripes, but this photograph is black and white. It is useless.
Well, at the very least, we can see that the balloon doesn't have any stripes. And consequently, we know that it can't belong to you.
Congratulations, you've narrowed the field of everyone in the world by one.
Hardly what you'd call proof of the balloon's owner. Cancel.
Don't I at least get points for a logical argument? I'll come up with another possibility then.
Objection. We're well past the points of mere possibilities. It's time for definitives now. So tell the court. What exactly does this alleged clue in the photograph prove?
We can reasonably assume that the pictured balloon was destroyed in the searing heat of the explosion.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was not my fault.
Evidently, because the birdcage from the kinesis machine materialized in the sky where it had been flying. And the balloon being filled with flammable hydrogen instantly and explosively ignited.
Objection.
Wrong. That's not what happened.
What?
It would appear that this photograph requires closer examination. Counsel for the defendants, you will highlight the location of this alleged clue in the photograph for the court.
Of course, my lord. If you look closely, it's plain enough to see. And what's shown is linked to another piece of evidence we have. In a way, that leads to an unbelievable conclusion. The clue that heavily suggests that the real reason the balloon exploded is... the real reason the balloon exploded is... this little tracer mark?
Take that!
What is that? The timing of this photograph can only be described as miraculous. If you look, you'll notice there's a bright white line that appears to point directly at the balloon.
Most likely a ray of light caught incidentally on the film.
I'm afraid I can see nothing of the sort.
If you look with a magnifying glass, my lord, it becomes clear what the nature of this bright line really is.
Goodness! What is that?
Undeniably some flash of light, yes.
Oh golly, do you think it might be lightning?
But it couldn't have been a finer day. I believe we may be looking at fire. A ball of fire heading straight for the balloon, like an arrow? Indeed, even to my aging eyes, it would appear to be a flame of some sort. My word, are you suggesting this flame struck the hydrogen gas that filled the balloon?
Objection! That's absurd. The balloon would have been 60 feet above the ground at the time. No flame could possibly have reached such a height.
Objection.
Actually, it's my opinion that a particular piece of evidence found at the scene reveals how that It is my opinion that a particular piece of evidence found at the scene reveals how that is exactly what did happen.
What evidence?
If such evidence exists, Council, then for goodness sake, present it, man. Which evidence explains this mysterious streak of flame that appears to be headed directly to the balloon?
Take that!
This was found hidden at the foot of a small ornamental tree near the scene.
Good lord, is that a crossbow?
An arrow dipped in oil and set alight could have been shot from this weapon, sending a flaming arrow straight into the hydrogen-filled balloon.
Are you suggesting that crossbow was used to deliberately...
Blimey, you're right. That streak of light in the photo looks just like an arrow, doesn't it? Then, the explosion of the balloon, it was... very likely the result of a flaming arrow from this crossbow igniting the hydrogen gas inside it.
No!
Order! Council, this is an extraordinary supposition.
If the aim was to cause the balloon to explode, the shooter could have used a gun, of course. However, there's an obvious reason why that would have been out of the question.
The noise of the discharge, of course.
That's right. By using a crossbow, the projectile could be fired at the balloon silently.
Well, yeah, if someone had shot off a gun in the exhibition grounds, it would have caused a real panic. But with the big explosion, there was a very big panic anyway, no?
I don't like this. I should be pleased to have found a plausible new explanation for all this, but something feels wrong.
Objection! Do you understand the implications of what you're saying, my new police friend?
If a flaming arrow did indeed hit the balloon, then obviously it would have exploded. And if the birdcage appeared from the cloud of smoke that ensued...
What? Wait a minute. What are you really saying here? I don't get it. Was the birdcage beamed up into the sky after all? Or what? My goodness me!
Now I understand. That's what that sinking feeling is about. I think there's a good chance that the birdcage was actually concealed inside the balloon all along.
What? Did I hear that correctly, Council?
There's no going back now. The horse has bolted. Let's assume, as I said, that the birdcage was hidden inside the green balloon from the start. On stage, when the experiment was started, the birdcage and the instantaneous kinesis machine disappeared in a cloud of smoke. At that moment, the flaming arrow was fired from the ground, causing the green balloon to explode and drawing the attention of the spectators to the sky above their heads. From amid the smoke, the hidden birdcage then appeared, to fall down and crash into the crystal tower. I think you'll all agree it's entirely plausible that what I've just described is the real truth behind the miraculous experiment carried out that day.
Good grief!
Objection! This is ludicrous. What you've described is no science experiment. It's a child's play, a contemptible play of stage magic.
Both Mr. Sholmes and Iris said that the experiment was a scientific impossibility, in which case, this is the only way to explain what happened that day.
And in any case, the victim's body was found inside the birdcage in the crystal tower. And if the instantaneous kinesis didn't take place, how do you explain that?
If I may put in a word, as a man of magic myself,
Such apparent discrepancies can easily be explained by some simple deception.
Juror number 3?
All that would be needed is a doppelganger, someone who looked very similar to the victim, Mr. Osman, and having this other man appear on stage to front the show as a body double.
Yeah, of course. So in fact, Mr. Osman must have been inside the birdcage that was concealed inside the balloon right from the start.
Objection!
That balloon would have been filled with hydrogen. Anything hidden inside it would have been scattered to the 4 winds when it exploded. No one would ever have embarked on such a risky venture.
Not necessarily. The explosive force of the balloon gas would very much depend upon the mixture ratio.
Juror number 4?
Flying balloons are rarely filled with pure hydrogen, but a mixture of other gases such as helium as well. Helium on its own doesn't explode, but by controlling the gas mixture ratio, the explosive force can be altered.
The mixture ratio?
Obviously, the victim's body would have suffered some burns. That would be unavoidable. But not to such an extent as to render this whole obscene charade impossible.
Exactly. So everything that happened can be explained, logically and scientifically. The explosion that engulfed the stage at the start of the experiment was no accident. It was all part of an elaborate deception to make it appear that instantaneous kinesis had occurred.
Well, goodness me.
And if we accept that this is what happened, it means that the victim, Mr. Osman, was never present on the public experimentation stage to begin with. In short, he couldn't have been killed by the defendant who was on stage in full view the entire time. This will be very hard for the prosecution to counter. Lord Van Zieks can't credibly maintain that Professor Hairbrain is a suspect now. Let me guess. Yep.
Mr. Naruhodo, I appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Professor?
But you can stop now. Just keep your mouth shut, please.
Sorry?
What's all this about, Mr. Hairbrain?
I, Albert Hairbrain, hereby confess that it was me who started Mr. Osman. Yeah, it was me with my faithful friend and partner Andrew the screwdriver.
What are you doing?
Order? Defendant, explain the sudden confession.
Professor Hairbrain, what are you talking about?
It's what I've said all along. I must protect my hypotheses and my precious machine. You stand there and claim it was all a trick, all an elaborate prank, but where's your proof? 9. You'd have to examine the machine if you wanted to prove it, but then it would be all over. My beautiful hypothesis would be laid bare. I mean, the indignity of it.
It's clear that you drew the plans for the experiment, but you didn't actually build it. It's quite conceivable that you were duped, Professor. If you'll just let me, I could...
Baroque!
Yes?
I'll cooperate. I'll do whatever you say. I swear it. So please, ensure the special dispensation for scientific equipment acted here to protect my reputation.
Pray forgive the discourtesy of filling my hollow chalice at this critical juncture. Here's to my learned Nipponese friend.
What?
And his upcoming attempt to clarify the defense's position in the light of the accused's confession. Do you intend to formally assert that the experiment was nothing more than a conjuring trick?
Because the moment you do, the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act that protects the professor's invention will cease to apply. The prosecution will then demand a rigorous examination of the machinery involved in order to establish the truth. However, if you acknowledge that the machine is genuine and instrumental in the victim's murder, any chance of investigating will be crushed, as the confidentiality of the professor's hypothesis preserved.
Well, Kazu, what is the defense's official position on this matter?
What Professor Hairbrain, my client, actually asked of me was to prove that the explosion on stage was an accident and protect the secrecy of his hypothesis. But there's no way to do that without implying the professor's guilt. Do I protect my client's life by asserting his innocence, or do I uphold my client's request but see him condemned? Either way, I can't avoid betraying his trust. You've been silent long enough. Isn't talking your trade, my learned friend? Or has all knowledge of English escaped your confused Nipponese mind?
Miss Naruhodo, there's no escape here. I have to make a choice.
But it's an impossible one. I have to give up on something, but what? The defense asserts that the defendant's instantaneous kinesis machine was in fact... Look, here's what I'm thinking here. If the machine was a dud, then even if they rip it apart, they're not gonna find anything because it's false. It's not real, right? So, look. Either way, I have to do what's right. No, I can't say it. My client placed his faith in me. I can't just let him down.
What must I give up on is not the question you have to ask yourself here. It's what can I protect?
Hello again, Mr. Naruhodo. It's been far too long.
Susaru-san? But what are you...
Hiya!
Oh, my first Susaru takedown in 6 months.
There will be time to talk later, Mr. Naruhodo. For now, we must concentrate on the task at hand. Which is working out not what I have to give up on, but what I can protect. Professor Hairbrain?
Yeah?
Yesterday you told me that science is the pursuit of truth. Well, my job is to pursue the truth too.
Yeah, of course.
And personally, I believe that you didn't stab Mr. Asman. I think you've come to realize something yourself too, haven't you? That your experiment and the machine you built with the victim are questionable? The truth behind that is what we must both pursue now. So, you finally opened your eyes. What? And as for you, Albert, you can't ignore this any longer. Having heard my learned friend's assertion, don't you have something to say?
Barok?
Lord Van Zeeks? Gosh, I've never heard him speak that way before.
In truth, there is one thing. Something I've remembered that is of relevance.
What?
On the day it happened, just before I began the experiment, I saw a man near the stage. A man holding that crossbow.
I beg your pardon? Professor, did the man have any distinguishing features? What did he look like?
taller than me, and thinner than me, with straight hair, straighter and whiter than mine. Let me see, one less lens than me too, a monocle, wears a stylish black monocle. But one thing in particular will help to positively identify the man, you see. I know him very well. After all, he is the engineer who built my invention.
What?
He built the machine? That's right. Mr. Osmond introduced him to me a year ago. He's a man by the name of Enoch Draper.
Enoch?
Trevor!
Does this name mean something? Members of the jury seem flustered.
Not a name any scientist wishes to hear. The man is an abomination.
Not a name any conjurer wishes to hear either. Who on earth is he?
I'm afraid this isn't the first tale of this nature that I've heard in scientific circles in connection with that name. There's talk of other flamboyant experiments that turn out to be nothing but stage trickery in the end. Obviously, the rascal is after the government's research grant money.
When magicians are in need of money, I have heard of them resorting to these underhand tactics. Some acquaintances of mine with experience of such things have mentioned Enoch Draper's name before.
The man is both an engineer and a magician. Yes, we're dealing with an unparalleled confidence trickster here. That's Enoch Draper for you.
Huh. So it's true then. My invention, my great machine, it was just a grand illusion.
Considering what we've just heard about Mr. Draper's character, I'm sorry to say that sounds increasingly likely.
Even though no one else believed it, I wanted to. I wanted to believe that machine would function exactly as my hypothesis predicted.
Which is why you were so opposed to it being investigated, I presume.
I knew that if the machine was examined in detail, its construction would give away my hypothesis. Obviously, I didn't want that to happen, but at the same time, I knew that if it was found to be nothing more than a trick, than a work of deception, then everything I'd worked towards, all my research, all my dreams, my whole life would be over. I was terrified at the prospect.
So you really had no idea then, did you? About the true nature of the machine that was built? And the true nature of Mr. Draper?
I'd never questioned anything. I didn't want to.
It's entirely possible that Mr. Osmond and Mr. Draper were working together to use you as a means of fraudulently acquiring the research grant money.
When I announced my invention to the crowd that day, it was the finest moment of my career. I pulled all the levers and turned all the dials in exactly the way Draper had described. When the smoke suddenly started billowing out, I panicked. I didn't know what was happening. But I really don't know how the whole illusion was made to work. I don't know anything anymore.
Let me confirm one final point with you, Professor. Do you now consent to the prosecution submitting the necessary paperwork to release your invention from the protection afforded by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act?
Yeah, please go ahead. I'm very sorry. Hello, darkness, my old friend. It would appear that we shall have to suspend proceedings for the remainder of the day now. Lord Van Zeeks?
My lord?
The The court has newly been made aware of another party whose involvement in this matter is critical.
Yes, Mr. Drebber.
Gather information about the man. If possible, I should like him served with a subpoena.
With pleasure, my lord.
Now, counsel for the defense. Yes, my lord. When we reconvene, I shall be looking for one thing and one thing alone from you. Evidence that the defendant is innocent of the crime for which he presently stands accused.
I understand.
Good. In that case, this court is adjourned until tomorrow morning.
Whew. Alright then.
Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? I'm so sorry. I was wrong, you were right. I tricked you, you trusted me, I dragged you into my mess. Oh, how did I ever come to this? I am so sorry.
Did you really have no idea, Professor? About what Mr. Drebber was really up to, I mean? About what he really was constructing?
Naturally. That machine was the embodiment of my hypothesis, of all my hopes and dreams. I had complete faith in it.
Alright, in that case, I won't say any more. Now, sadly the murder accusation against you still stands, so we must do as much investigation as we can before the trial resumes tomorrow.
Well, thank you for doing so much for me.
I'm so sorry for arriving late this morning, Mr. Naruhodo.
Arriving late?
Didn't you receive my postcard? I wanted to let you know when I'd arrive.
Postcard? What postcard?
I hid it from Miro now, so it'll be a surprise.
Well, did it work?
Surprised, alright. Especially when she threw me to the ground. Oh dear, I am so sorry. I was just so happy to see you again that it sort of slipped out. Maybe we could stick to more traditional displays of emotion in future?
Says his train was late into London Victoria this morning, you see. But we made the coachman really whip the horses out so she didn't miss the whole trial.
I was watching from the gallery for a while, but in the end, I'm afraid I couldn't contain myself. Well, I'm glad he didn't. Oh, having you at my side in court gives me the strength I need to win. So I'm delighted to see you back in London. Oh, you are too kind, Mr. Naruhodo. I am delighted to be here. I hope I can continue to be of service to you. Of course. So, what's brought you back? Did Professor Makatoba not protest?
Let's save all that conversation for when we're back at home, shall we? You know, I've made one of my most special blends ever for this special occasion.
Oh, Iris, how wonderful. I can't wait. So Sato-san was back in London. It's hard to describe how happy that made me feel at the time. But despite my elation, our tale was about to take yet another extraordinary turn. To be continued. Farewell, friends.